Back to school can be a stressful time for those in need, but one local club is hoping to help mitigate that. Local 5's Brandon Wynn spoke with the Lincoln High Fashion Club on how they're helping the community.
As back-to-school season is in full swing, one high school club is focused on giving back.
The Lincoln High School Fashion Club is making sure the South Side is clothed and stylish.
And I think it means so much to just give back, and we have so much need here that, I decided I can do this. I'll take this on, add it to my plate, and it hasn't really been an addition. It's just added to my life and not so much to my work.
Lily Fredrickson is an English teacher at Lincoln. She helped start the club along with some students.
We have so much of a need at Des Moines Public Schools. Kids need, their basic things like food, shelter, but I don't think we always think of clothing as that.
As students start to take to the hallways, Fredrickson says one of the biggest needs for students is confidence.
All high schoolers deserve that experience, right? Like they all deserve to feel like I was able to express myself. This was my sense of style.
However, the club isn't just about style, it's about meeting a need.
It's fun that you can help other people who might not have access to clothes that they like or just like general things that they need.
It helps with like overconsumption and things like that because you're just recycling old clothes that you can make into your own.
The club has big plans, hoping to expand the operation into a community resource for anyone in need of clothes, teaching students about giving back and, of course, fashion.
This is the one that I made at back to school night, and it's Lincoln merch, but you could do whatever design you want, and the best thing about it is that you can just have fun with it and have creative freedom.
In Des Moines, Brandon Wynn, Local 5 News.
Today is the first day of class for many schools across central Iowa, and this will be the first full school year with interim superintendent Matt Smith in charge of Des Moines Public Schools. I sat down with Smith to discuss the new school year, and he says he is excited to start it and looks forward to seeing students back in the classrooms. He provided an update on new district projects following last November's passing of the Reimagined Education Bond, and he also says the district is wrapping up its boundary analysis for potential school boundary changes, and that form is available on the district website through the end of August.
Passing the bond in November was amazing, and truth be told, I'm still celebrating. But we've got construction happening. There's bricks being laid right now at 4 different middle schools for the maker spaces, and so that's really, really exciting to see. So you can really see the physical structures started to take shape. So it's a really, really exciting time of year to see all the construction going up.
And you can stream my full interview with Matt Smith exclusively here on We Are Iowa Plus. Just download it on your TV and watch for free.
From new teachers and new classmates to new routines, it's a day of fresh starts for thousands of students across the metro. As Local 5's J.D. Snover reports, school leaders say they're beginning the year on a positive note.
School is back in session for thousands of students across Iowa, and local leaders say they've got a positive outlook as the new year begins.
At Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, students arrived Monday morning to a familiar first day tradition. The toilet paper covered lawn was just one sign that another school year is officially underway.
By and large, I'm just super excited about it, right?
Interim Superintendent Matt Smith says the first day brings a sense of optimism across Des Moines Public Schools.
The overwhelming sentiment in our staff and in our community is that this is a really exciting time of year to start the school year off.
And unlike some other districts, Smith says Des Moines is starting the year in a relatively strong position when it comes to staffing.
We're sitting really, really well right now.
The district has filled more than 90% of its teaching positions, but education leaders say that's not the case everywhere.
We don't have all the final numbers to know exactly whether or not we're in a better place or worse place than last year statewide, but we have heard some concerns.
Joshua Brown leads the Iowa State Education Association, representing teachers across the state. He says last-minute staffing shifts are common, but some areas are seeing more than usual.
To be able to meet the demands of students that are actually coming.
Brown says educators are also watching how new school safety policies are implemented this year.
There needs to be administrative support with clear and consistent, up-to-date processes for addressing disruptive behavior and intentionally violent acts.
Despite those challenges, Brown says educators are looking forward to the year ahead.
Overall, it sounds like people are excited for a fresh start.
In Des Moines, I'm J.D. Snover, Local 5 News.
Many high school athletes strive to continue their playing careers in college. And on this edition of The Drive, Local 5's Trey Redfield tells us about a Grandview Christian football player that's taking a different path.
Just on, ready?
At Grandview Christian, it's more than just football.
God has blessed us as a team, and he's really working through us this year, and I think this is the greatest spiritual team we've had in multiple years.
Jake Buell's a leader in all facets, starting at quarterback for the Thunder this fall. As a senior, his sights are set on something different.
I'm going to join the Air National Guard, and I'm going to be a part of that program. I did my MEPS this morning before practice.
That excitement stems from a family member paving the way.
My grandfather actually served in the Vietnam War, and he was a Purple Heart recipient. That's cool to be able to look up to him in that way when it comes to service.
Leading on the field has driven Buell to lead off it.
It brings a joy to my heart when I can go and I see these things, I see needs that are in our country. That was one that I saw and I felt like I needed to join and be a part of.
He wants other people to succeed. He doesn't care about the credit. You know, he'll do any of the dirty work to win.
In football, it's shown by playing two ways. But when it comes to his future, Buell shows it by committing to one nation.
He's opened this door to go and lead my country and lead the guys around me.
Nothing's about Jake. He gives his all and is a great leader.
A great leader with something greater in mind. I'm Trey Redfield, Local 5 Sports.
Well, Honeycrisp apples are typically known as a fall crop, but here in central Iowa, Honeycrisps are ready for picking. Local 5's JD Snover shows us how.
Well, the state fair is behind us, kids are back in school, and fall is creeping up on us. But here at the apple orchard, well, it's actually coming a little bit early.
Apple picking season typically gets underway around Labor Day and runs through Halloween. But growers say this year's mix of late rain and well-timed summer heat helped the crop ripen ahead of schedule. At Wilson's Orchard in Cumming, they're preparing to open pick your own apple season nearly 2 weeks earlier than normal.
You can expect an experience that doesn't require a screen, okay? You know, you don't have to have a phone to have fun. Your kids don't have to have a video game going to have fun. You just got to come out and enjoy. And, you know, with the cooler days and cooler nights coming in, it's just a great time to be outside.
Owner Paul Rash says fresh-picked apples will soon start showing up at area farmers markets, such as the ones in downtown Des Moines and Valley Junction. But if you prefer to grab them off the tree yourself, well, that starts on Wednesday. Incoming, I'm JD Snover, Local 5 News.
When a major disaster hits, knowing where to go and what to do can make a difference. One local council is now looking at how Des Moines could better prepare for that moment. Local 5's Deja Garner has more on the plan and the Des Moines neighborhoods being considered.
Central Iowa has seen its share of severe weather this year, from tornado warnings to heavy rain, including last month's flooding at 4 Mile Creek. And with millions of dollars in federal climate resilience funding being cut, the Iowa Environmental Council says it's working with the city of Des Moines to make sure communities have more places to go during a disaster.
This is an opportunity for us to work proactively in a difficult landscape with the city to try to find the best possible answers that we can for the people of Des Moines.
IEC says the goal is to choose a location where the community can practice real-life disaster scenarios and bring in experts to help figure out what should happen after a disaster strikes.
For example, let's say we're here and we know that the power is out right here. Okay, how do you not use these hospitals, right? Because they're out of power and the backup generator failed. That would be a progressive disaster. And we talk with emergency management, public health, and say, what would you do then?
Smith says they plan on putting the center in a neighborhood where residents may have a harder time finding resources during a natural disaster.
The Riverbend area here in downtown Des Moines is one that we're looking at. We're looking at the Highland Park area, Oak Park. The south side of Des Moines has some challenges.
The director tells me that he is presenting this disaster plan to emergency management. This will happen on October 15th at the Iowa Homeland Security Conference. In downtown Des Moines, Deja Garner, Local 5 News.
Tonight, the world is mourning musician and philanthropist Dolly Parton. Her family announced today the country music legend has died. She was 80 years old. Parton recently shared she was having health issues. She wrote more than 3,000 songs over a half-century plus career. Parton performed in Iowa over the years, including at the state fair a handful of times. Des Moines is mourning tonight after losing Parton. Local 5's Brandon Wynn spoke with some community members on what they'll remember most about the superstar.
Dolly Parton has unfortunately passed away at the age of 80, and the community says that's devastating.
Music icon Dolly Parton is being fondly remembered throughout the metro.
She was writing her own songs at a time where a lot of women weren't allowed to do that, especially on the countryside of things.
Nate Niswinger owns ZZZ Records. He explained how Dolly was an artist known for defying expectations.
She was on Hannah Montana for a number of years, so a lot of younger people remember her as that. So she's always been, again, relevant and means something else to different people.
Whether acting or writing hit songs such as 9 to 5, Jolene, or I Will Always Love You, Dolly made an impact that goes beyond generations.
You can never really imagine her dying because she's been around so long and had such a long career that it's just really hard to think about that. And she's one of the only musicians that I feel like almost everybody likes.
However, her legacy in the metro isn't just found in vinyl record stores.
She has created one of the world's most successful childhood literacy programs that has ever existed. And it was inspired by her dad, which makes it so much more passionate for her and meaningful.
Jill Freistad Tate is the founder of Raising Readers in the Heartland, which partners with Parton's Imagination Library. The organization gives away books to toddlers to increase literacy rates, something close to Parton's heart.
She used that fortune and fame to make life better for children and families. And she did not want anything in return.
Raising Readers is having a fundraiser 5K at DMAC Ankeny on Saturday the 29th to raise funds for their program. In Des Moines, Brandon Wynn, Local 5 News.
And back to school season is, of course, an exciting time, but it can be challenging for some.
Yeah, starting a new year can be stressful for kids with ADHD, especially if they don't know they actually have it. Local 5's Emma Stroner is here, and Emma, you spoke with ADHD experts. How do they say ADHD presents itself in the classroom?
Well, it depends on the subtype. So for hyperactivity, that might look like getting up and running around and fidgeting. And for inattention, that might look like struggling to stay focused on an assignment. They also say losing things and forgetting daily tasks are telltale signs, but they all differ depending on the kid's age, gender, and personality. Back to school time brings new people, new classrooms, and new routines. It can be an exciting time, but also a stressful one, especially for students with ADHD.
There's been lots of demands placed on them, placed on their attention, constraints placed on their behavior that they have to follow.
But starting school can be even more stressful if a kid is going through class with unknown or undiagnosed ADHD. Pediatric and ADHD experts here in Iowa say signs in school-age children depend on their grade level and gender.
Like a kindergartner, you may see more of that hyperactive, impulsive behavior, right? Like lots of fidgeting, difficulties being still.
ADHD is a lot more likely to go undiagnosed in a girl than in a boy because the inattention is oftentimes less noticeable.
Other signs include losing school items like lunchboxes and coats and forgetting daily tasks like brushing teeth. Molly Nicholas, an associate professor at the University of Iowa ADHD and Development Lab, says presenting ADHD symptoms doesn't always mean a child has the disorder. She says parents should watch for frequency and severity.
What's key for an ADHD diagnosis, though, is are those things causing problems? Are they causing impairment in some way?
In addition, Unity Point pediatrician Marty Francisco says ADHD can look like other disorders.
With autism and ADHD, you can have both of them together. Anxiety is another thing. People will fidget or be restless when they have underlying anxiety.
So if you think your child has ADHD, what should you do? Nicholas says after diagnosis, a combination of medication and therapy is key.
There's higher education rates, all of those types of things, but they also have lower rates of different co-occurring problems, including things like substance use.
Francisco also says here in Iowa, schools are ready to assist students with ADHD.
At school, they have things like 504 plans or IEPs. So that is a plan you make specialized with your school district for ways to assist and help the child at school.
Now, the most recent data from the CDC shows about 10% of kids here in Iowa are diagnosed with ADHD. Experts we spoke with say diagnoses have really been rising over the past 30 years, and that has a lot to do with increased awareness and taking the disorder more seriously. Dana?
Today, Meta reached a nearly $18 billion settlement to end a landmark lawsuit. The deal resolved claims from 29 states that the company's platforms like Facebook and Instagram harmed young people's mental health. Under the agreement, Meta's payment will fund youth online safety initiatives in many states. The social media giant will also impose new daily time limits for teens. As part of the settlement, Meta does not admit to any wrongdoing. Iowa is one of the states that sued Meta. Local 5's Max Swinson spoke with the Iowa Attorney General who filed the suit and someone who studies the impacts of technology. They both say the settlement is a big first step.
I'm here outside the office of Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird, who just received what she called a big win against a massive company, Meta. Here's what that settlement could mean for Iowa children and their families.
Bird says Iowa children will be safer online thanks to the terms in the Meta settlement. Researchers who study child psychology, like Iowa State professor Douglas Gentile, agree.
I was part of a National Academy of Sciences panel looking at the effects of social media on children and adolescents, and almost all of the things that we recommended, Meta is agreeing to here.
Under the settlement's terms, Meta is required to restrict time children and teens can spend on Instagram and Facebook, and prevent access to those apps overnight. Plus, Meta agreed to do more to prevent kids under the age of 13 from being on their platforms and take steps to reduce harmful content.
Meta allowed teens to have access to cosmetic surgery filters, and that caused a lot of body images and comparisons with unrealistic body types. And so anxiety, depression, self-harm, those were all consequences of allowing that sort of thing.
Bird says she's especially pleased with the parental controls outlined in the settlement. How successful all these measures are will be reviewed by an independent auditor, something Gentile says often gets missed in these type of agreements. Iowa is also getting more than $126 million from the settlement. With that money, Gentile wants to see comprehensive media literacy programs for K-12 so that
children grow up learning how to use the media in a way that maximizes the benefits while minimizing the harms.
When I asked Bird, she didn't say exactly how the state would use the money. Also to be determined if more settlements are coming.
I hope that the other tech platforms follow suit and realize that they need to do the right thing too.
Max Swenson, Local 5 News.
If you were impacted by July's flooding, time is running out to apply for federal recovery assistance. The Small Business Administration says help is available for more than just businesses. Local 5's JD Snover has more on what you need to know.
It's been nearly 2 months since 4 Mile Creek arose from its banks and caused devastation throughout the metro. But even all this time later, recovery is ongoing.
The U.S. Small Business Administration says it's continuing to accept applications for disaster recovery loans following July's flooding. And despite the agency's name, the program isn't limited to just businesses. Homeowners, renters, nonprofits, and religious organizations may also qualify for assistance to help cover recovery costs.
Our terminology is that they have to have a credit score acceptable to the SBA standards, you know, and I don't think those standards are particularly high. We are aware that someone is in distress, and we are here to approve people. We're not here to ask you to apply and deny you. That's not our goal.
The SBA says it's received applications from residents and organizations in at least 7 Iowa counties included in the federal disaster declaration. The deadline to apply for this round is September 21st. In Des Moines, I'm JD Snover, Local 5 News.
Back-to-school mornings can be busy, and for many Des Moines families, breakfast is one more thing to figure out. So how can parents make sure their kids start the day with the nutrients they need? Local 5's Deja Gardner shows us some simple options.
That's right, Alex. School is back in session, and that means parents are back to those early mornings, making sure their kids have something to eat before heading out the door. I spoke with a dietitian about some simple and healthy breakfast options so kids can be ready to learn.
Breakfast doesn't have to be complicated to be nutritious. The dietitian says the key is combining different food groups, giving your child a mix of protein, fiber, and healthy fats.
So starting off with that base of the Greek yogurt, or again, a plant-based type of yogurt, that's going to give us calcium. That's also going to give us protein. And then to build off of that, How about we add some fruit? So, for example, throw in some blueberries. Blueberries are actually called our brain food.
And if your kiddo would rather have something savory in the morning, a breakfast burrito can be a staple.
Ground turkey is a great base because it's low in saturated fat, great source of protein. It tastes great. You could add a little seasoning to it if you want, but then pair it with a whole grain tortilla, a little bit of canned, no salt added beans. And again, now you have a delicious on the go. You could eat it in the car even.
But what if your child wants something sweet like a donut? Yoakum says you don't have to completely take those foods off of the table. Instead, think about what you can add to make the meal more balanced.
So have donut with a hard-boiled egg, or have a muffin with peanut butter and a glass of milk.
And on those mornings where there's no time to sit down for breakfast, Yoakum says a healthy grab and go can get the job done.
In the car, throw them a chomps, throw them a little crispy fruit. At least you've got 2 food groups. Maybe you throw them maybe like a milk, you know, in a prepackaged kind of container. And again, you're still able to get that nutrition.
And that same idea applies after school. The dietitian says having a nutritious snack ready to go is especially important for kids who have sports, activities, or other evening programs.
The city of Des Moines' budget crisis has led to a setback in getting a pro soccer stadium. Local 5's Brandon Wynn has the details.
This area of Des Moines was set to be developed to have a future professional soccer stadium. Des Moines now says the plans have changed. The long journey to Des Moines receiving its first professional soccer team has reached a halt.
I think the one thing on the decision today was about the development around the soccer stadium with the Krause Group. And that's what ended today, based on the fiscal constraints that we were given, really handed to us by our legislation.
The Krause Group was set to develop the land necessary for the Iowa Soccer Development Foundation to build a pro soccer stadium off of MLK. That deal is now off due to the ongoing Des Moines budget crisis.
We're under a lot of new fiscal constraints based on recent legislative changes, which is resulting in a lot of hard decisions that are having to be made, not just on large catalytic projects, but city operations as well.
The city explained that choosing to cut either land development or essential services was an unfortunate byproduct of the 2% property tax hike caps put in by the Iowa legislature. The Krause Group responded in a statement saying, in part, the goalposts have continued to move, creating uncertainty for anyone seeking to work with the city or make a significant long-term investment. Krause Group has always sought to invest in ways that serve the public good. Krause claims their proposal also included helping the city financially to avoid cuts to city services. However, despite the land development deal no longer being in play, Mayor Bozen says the stadium is still a go.
I think that we'll have more conversations, and whether the stadium goes in that site or not, is there other opportunities? Those are all things that could be up, but we are committed to soccer and economic development.
With no spot for the Iowa Soccer Development Foundation to build the stadium, the timeline on the project is currently unknown. The city says it will have to take a similar approach to all economic development opportunities going forward under the new tax law. In Des Moines, Brandon Wynn, Local 5 News.
And this morning we are learning more about the measles outbreak in southern Iowa.
There's 17 confirmed cases, and Iowa health officials say it may be linked to less kids getting vaccinated. Local 5's Emma Stroner joins us with the latest on the outbreak. Emma, what are you learning about the most recent vaccine rates?
So in 2025, Polk County saw the highest amount of students that are not fully vaccinated in 6 years. Also, Iowa HHS data shows that the entire state of Iowa has the highest amount of under and unimmunized students it's had in 9 years. This coincides with more religious exemptions in Polk County and what health officials say is a trend of vaccine hesitancy.
School's back in session, and for certain grade levels, that means it's time for certain vaccines. But local doctors and health departments are warning Iowa families of a trend.
We are seeing a decline in our vaccination rates.
Both in Polk County and in the entire state of Iowa, the amount of under-vaccinated students is at a 6-year high. Health officials say that's because of increased hesitancy, especially coming from shifted beliefs after the COVID-19 pandemic.
We'll definitely see more questions about the vaccine, especially because there's a lot more misinformation out there.
There have been many years now of misinformation put out there around vaccination and its safety and efficacy.
As health officials track a measles outbreak in southern Iowa, the Polk County Health Department says Iowa is underneath the threshold for herd immunity.
Our vaccine rate has come down from 2019 from about 96.5% down to 93.5%. That is a worrisome decline because measles, we know that threshold for herd immunity, as we call it, is really at that 95%.
This also comes as Polk County sees an increase in religious exemptions. And Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says Iowa's measles cases are popping up in religious communities.
It can be a tricky conversation, and also there's concern that sometimes religious exemptions are being used as kind of a personal belief exemption.
While 17 cases is the highest amount our state has seen in a while, experts say if you're sending your kid to school and they're up to date on vaccines, they will be safe from viral illnesses. However, they warn that if the vaccination rates continue going down, other outbreaks could happen.
The problem with measles is it's considered the canary in the coal mine, which means that it's the most contagious virus on the planet. And so it's the first one that we start to see if immunization rates are not high enough to keep diseases at bay.
As we watch our vaccine rates, if they continue on this trend, we do anticipate seeing higher rates of viral illness, especially during, the fall and winter months.
And for the latest updates on the measles outbreak, you can text measles to that number you see right there on your screen. That's 515-457-1026. Also, if you live in Polk County and your kid is either not up to date on their vaccines in time for the school year or you're not sure of their status, the health department says you can call them at 515-286-3798 to check. Dana?
Yesterday, the Des Moines City Council met to discuss $11.5 million in budget cuts that could affect more than 43 job positions. Local 5's Deja Gardner is outside City Hall right now. And Deja, what's the latest update on these cuts?
Yeah, JD, I spoke to the city manager, Scott Sanders. He tells me that 15 people were laid off, and this comes after the city proposed a new plan to cut nearly $11.5 million out of their budget. The Des Moines city manager says the budget pressure is being driven by new property tax rules state lawmakers approved and a drop in federal funding.
We have had most recently some additional federal funds that have now been depleted and are no longer in our balance accounts generating interest revenue.
That loss of revenue is putting pressure on the city to find ways to reduce spending over the next 2 fiscal years. One area that can see a change is police patrols in city parks. Sanders says the city is planning to reduce those patrols because Des Moines parks are considered safe.
Well, parents need to know that our parks are safe, first and foremost. In fact, the park system that we have in Des Moines is world class. They receive awards every year in what we are able to provide to our residents.
The proposed cuts also includes reduced security at city buildings, along with changes to the fire department.
We did have one firefighter position that was recommended for a cut, but it is a vacant position, not a layoff.
And those are just 3 of the areas that could be affected if the city council goes forward with the budget cut plan. City council members. Now the goal is to cut out $17 million. This is for the next 2 fiscal years. And Sanders told me that residents, they're able to weigh in on the next potential cuts. That will be on the city council's website. At City Hall, Deja Garner, Local 5 News.
Tonight, President Trump has put 50% tariffs on certain Canadian goods. In response, Canada has unleashed retaliatory tariffs on American products. As Local 5's Brandon Wynn reports, the impact could soon be felt here at home.
Local businesses are saying that the Canada tariffs could affect some key markets.
President Trump put 50% tariffs on Canadian goods such as aluminum and lumber. That means some mechanics may have to raise their prices.
Truthfully, we don't really know how this is going to go. We're all kind of responding to it as it happens.
Tanner Peterson with Honest Wrenches shared that although it's unclear how much of the tariffs will affect their business, it is still something consumers should be aware of and planning for.
What we're seeing right now is people are continuing to hold onto their vehicle a little bit longer. People that have done routine maintenance, people that have taken care of things as they've popped up, we're starting to see those people continue to come back.
Peterson says the best way to save money is making sure small jobs aren't neglected. as that could hurt you in the long run.
You don't do this few $100 brake job, and then you wear down the brakes to the point where you have to replace the calipers as well. Now we're talking about potentially 2x the cost of doing a brake job.
Mechanics aren't the only ones facing uncertain tariff markets. The lumber tariffs could put a strain on the housing market. But Scott Steelman with the Des Moines Area Association of Realtors says the effects might not be felt tomorrow.
The homes being built right now, those have been planned for almost 12 months, and they won't be affected by tomorrow's tariffs. But those homes that we're projecting into next year, and specifically this time next year, could very easily be impacted by those.
Steelman remains confident that the Midwest shouldn't be hit as hard as other areas in the U.S.
We're fortunate here in Des Moines, and specifically the Midwest, in that we have a very well-established group of builders and inventory that's always available to us. We stay pretty flat year over year of the number of homes that we build, and that's really helps with the cost.
In Des Moines, Brandon Wynn, Local 5 News.
Well, Gary Swenson has been leading the Valley Tigers since 1995 and has won 5 state titles during that span. Now in his 53rd year of coaching, I went to find out what keeps Swenson coming back. For over half a century, Gary Swenson has spent each fall out on the field with a whistle around his neck.
You gotta just keep plugging away.
Every year you decide whether or not you're doing a good enough job, whether you feel good enough that you want to come back and do it again.
5 state championships, 9 state title game appearances, 5 straight trips to the state semifinals. Many would consider that pretty good, even great. And that's the standard Swenson has established at Valley.
And it just shows that regardless of the players he has on his staff, he's able to have what he needs, and he can get you to where you want to be. And that's obviously the end goal every year, so hopefully we can continue that run that we've had.
After so many years at the helm, Swenson's coaching style still resonates with the players.
He doesn't really yell at us all the time, but when he's very stern with all of us all the time, so we know we have to really step up to play at the level he wants us to play at, and if we're not doing that, he knows how to push us to get to where we want to be.
The game has evolved a lot over the years, and while Swenson has adapted, he's stayed true to the principles he built the program on.
I think if your teaching is sound and you're teaching fundamental football and you teach kids, it's really a pretty simple game. We all want to make it real complicated, but it's really not.
Raina Garcia, Local 5 Sports.